And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome indeed to Jimmo Fix-It.
One of the country's best-known broadcasters, Sir Jimmy Savile, has died at the age of 84. One of the country's best-known broadcasters, Sir Jimmy Savile, has died at the age of 84. With a career that spanned 40 years, he was famous for his show Jim'll Fix It and for being the first and last presenter of Top of the Pops. Sir Jimmy was also well known for his charity work, raising more than £40 million. Well, many tributes have been paid tonight, and Prince Charles said he was saddened by the news. Nick Hyam looks back at his life.
Jimmy Savile loved the limelight and crowds loved him. But underneath the flamboyant showman, he was a profound enigma. He'd become a disc jockey, one of the very first, after a stint as a wrestler. He became famous for his catchphrases, his dyed hair and eccentric clothes.
How's you guys and gals at home?
He was instantly recognisable. He was a wonderful marketing man, promotion man for himself, a recognisable dress, the stylised speech. Goodness gracious, as it happens, now then, he founded his whole career on.
But there was much more to him than spinning discs. On Savile's travels, he broadcast live from locations all around the country.
Listen, how about on the radio we shall play you a nice piece of music. What sort of music would you like?
Jim'll fix it.
For 20 years, he ran Jim'll Fix It, fulfilling ordinary people's dreams, like the lucky boy who got to visit a model train factory. He became a rich man and wasn't shy of showing it. He was an outrageous self-publicist, but he also put his celebrity to use, raising money for charity. He ran marathons, raised £20 million for the Spinal Injuries Centre at Stoke Mandeville, and at Leeds Infirmary worked regularly as a porter.
All my life I was governed by fun. Single fella, no expenses. Every day's Christmas Day, every night's New Year's Eve. It's all fun. It was fun when I started, and it's fun today, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of fun.
Outside his Leeds home today, a fan laid flowers in tribute, and his family issued a statement.
Jimmy was a wonderful man. His public face is well known, but we knew him much more as an uncle. He was a very good friend.
But he was a difficult man to fathom. Louis Theroux made a documentary in which the pair travelled to Scarborough and the flat where Sir Jimmy's mother had once lived.
The walls are suede, aren't they?
Yes, suede.
That's nice.
He was a man who fought shy of commitments and relationships.
Why have you said in interviews that you don't have emotions?
Because it's easier. The truth is, I'm very good at masking them.
In the end, he was simply a puzzle, perhaps a profoundly lonely man who craved attention but found consolation in doing good.
Good evening. The veteran broadcaster and DJ Sir Jimmy Savile has died. He was 84. He was best known for his show Jim'll Fix It and for being the first and last presenter of Top of the Pops. As a charity campaigner, he also ran more than 200 marathons, raising more than £40 million. While tributes are being paid to him tonight, Prince Charles said he was saddened by the news. Nick Hyam reporting. Let's go to our correspondent Judith Moritz, who's outside Sir Jimmy's home in Leeds. And a popular figure there, Judith.
Yeah, hugely so. Obviously, the national reputation is what will be remembered, but locally here in Yorkshire and Leeds particularly, Jimmy Savile, a very well-known presence for many years in this area, just outside his home here in the park locally, jogging in his famous tracksuits at the Leeds General Infirmary, where he used to help out voluntarily as a porter, and in restaurants and bars around here where people got to know him very well, and we've had people coming up to pay tribute here and leave flowers at the apartment as well. And in the last few minutes as well, we've heard a little bit from Sir Jimmy Savile's family. He lived here alone, but we've heard in the last few minutes from Roger Foster, who is one of Jimmy Savile's nephews.
It is with deep sadness that I can tell you that our uncle, Sir Jimmy Savile, passed away quietly in his sleep during the night. Jimmy was a wonderful man. His public face is well known, but we knew him much more as an uncle. He was a very good friend. Jimmy will be sadly missed by very many people. We would like to thank the people who have already offered us their condolences.
You can probably see that there is still a police presence here outside Sir Jimmy Savile's home. There are no suspicious circumstances surrounding his death. The police here, though, just monitoring comings and goings. It was in fact that the officers from West Yorkshire Police who were called here to the apartment just after midday in Leeds after Sir Jimmy's body was discovered. And we can also tell you this evening that the coroner's van the coroner has been on site here. But as we say, no suspicious circumstances surrounding Sir Jimmy Savile's death, just a lot of very sad people. And lastly, I'll leave you with the words from one woman who came here and left some flowers signed simply from a Leeds girl who used to watch you running marathons, she said, and in your famous gold tracksuit here on the streets of Leeds.
Judith Moritz, outside Sir Jimmy Savile's home. Thank you very much. Well, Howard Silverman was a friend of Sir Jimmy for more than 40 years. They ran several London marathons together. Jimmy was also best man at his wedding. I spoke to him on the line a short time ago. He gave me his reaction to the news.
It's extremely sad, and all I can think of was the great happy times and the way my life had probably changed down to Jimmy, because I did all sorts of things that I would have never done in a million years.
How did you get to know him?
How did I get to know him? Basically, cut a very long story short, going back in the 60s, I was extremely friendly with a guy who had a nightclub in Leeds, who was probably Jimmy's closest friend, it was before he was even famous. And I was a friend of his. I got to know Jimmy through this guy. They called him Dennis Peace, who unfortunately passed away last year, did Dennis. And we got friendly then, but we were big close friends. Then all of a sudden, we got friendly, very friendly, basically because we had something in common, and that was we used to both run. And nobody used to run in those days, and we used to meet up and go for a run, and then we'd sort of run around the streets of Leeds, and then I'd get a call off Jimmy, do you fancy going for another run? Then we did the marathons together, and that's basically how we really got friendly. All I can say is that he had lots and lots of friends, but they weren't the famous friends. And when you went out with him, he was just an ordinary guy. He was a really, really ordinary guy that chatted about just normal things. It was really strange because you just talk about your close pals that were just ordinary working guys that he was friendly with. And then in the next minute, you would say something about, I saw the Beatles, for instance, on TV, and then very casually he'll say, I remember going with John Lennon on the plane to America, and all of a sudden that brought it home, what a famous guy and the sort of people that he mixed around with. He always used to joke, and my nickname was the Yosh to him, and we'd go out for a bite to eat, and he would say to me, well, he said, you must admit I've got a great circle of friends. He said, I just spoke to Prince Charles on the phone about an hour ago. He says, and now you and I, we're going out for a bite to eat. So he did have an unbelievable totally mixed set of friends, but he had a lot of friends. He was my best man. I got married for the first time at the age of 57, which was only 6 years ago, and he was my best man there, and he made plenty of cracks about that.
Howard Silverman, a friend of Sir Jimmy Savile. OK, see you in about 15 minutes. Let's return now to the news that Sir Jimmy Savile has died at the age of 84. In May, he gave an interview to BBC Manchester in which he described how he'd got involved with Top of the Pops.
The telephone rang, and a chap says, hello, my name's Johnny Stewart, and I'm going to do a programme that you've called Top of the Pops. It was going to be called the Teen and 20 Disc Club, but you said it's a long title, that's the Top of the Pops. And we'd like you to be the disc jockey on it. And I said, yes, OK, because I was in 64, and in those days, things like that happened. Things like that don't happen today. But it happened then. I said, yes, OK, and that's how it started.
Just tell us a bit about your background. What had you been doing up until that point?
Until that point, I was doing dance halls, and I invented the world's first double deck. And the people that made them, they said, you don't need to, Jim, because these don't break down. And I said, but when this record is playing on this side, I'm getting the record ready for this side. And the fellow says, my God, are they in that much of a hurry? And I said, yes, my people are, and that's where the 2 decks came from, and now that's a worldwide phenomenon.
So you were the first person ever to think...
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I was the very... History has it, and they're going to make a film about it, I think. History has it that I was the very, very first in the whole world to run a dance to records. And it was like 100 years ago, and there was no such thing as electric turntables or anything like that. They just wound up gramophones. But I always thought that it was marvellous that you could put a record on and there was this band coming out of sound. So I got some cards and I wrote, Grand Record Dance, 1 shilling. 5p today, and lo and behold, I sold 12 tickets. And I didn't have any records, so I borrowed 6 records from somebody, and I got this little place in Leeds, and that was the very first disco. And somebody, some film company, just found that, and they wanted to put a plaque on the wall of the place, and they said, it's a worldwide phenomenon. I said, yes, I know. And they said, well, why haven't you done anything about it? I said, I can't be bothered. I did it. That'll do for me. And that's it.
Well, Tony Blackburn is, of course, a former colleague at Radio 1. A little earlier, he told me of his memories of Sir Jimmy Savile.
I mean, he was a one-off. He was always in a tracksuit. He was always Jimmy Savile. I don't think anybody really got to know him that well because he was always this larger-than-life character who did an enormous amount for charity and was always running marathons.
When you went out, I mean, did you socialise with him, or was it always an act? Was there always that carapace of Jimmy Savile, the entertainer? Did you ever get beneath that?
No, I don't think I ever did. I think there was one time I got to, he just came down and it wasn't Jimmy Savile for a time. When I was going out to do I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, he suddenly said to me, he said, I really hope you do well at that. I'm sure you will. And suddenly and then he went back to the now then, now then. But that was the only moment. I mean, we worked together a terrific amount. I didn't socialise with him. It was a purely working relationship. And I don't really think anybody, well, I don't know anybody who really knew what he was like. I just think he was like that the whole time.
He was in his 50s, wasn't he, or nearly 50 when he was doing Top of the Pops. Did he strike you as a man who was a chameleon, who could change and sort of transform himself on a sixpence, as it were, and always sort of fit in with the zeitgeist?
Yes, I mean, he was really just Jimmy Savile. It was simple as that. I mean, he raised an enormous amount for charity. He loved doing his charity work and his marathons. I mean, I don't know how he did all those marathons. It was amazing.
Well, especially after all the cigars he's smoking. Every time you see him, he's got a cigar to smoke.
I don't think he ever really smoked a cigar. I mean, he always had that cigar on, but I never really saw him taking a puff and inhaling it. So I think it was just there for show. I might be wrong on that, but I never really saw him smoking one very seriously. But he was just a complete one-off, you know, and that was it. I think Jimmy Savile, the way you see him on television and the way he behaved like that, I think that was just him. And I think he was a bit of a lonely character as well.
Was he good fun?
Yes, I mean, it was just Jimmy Savile the whole time. I mean, when you were with him, he was always talking about, you know, his time when he was a miner and things like that, and always be proud of what you do, never mind what you wear. And he was always promoting the fact that, you know, he was promoting himself in a way to you. And that was the strange thing about
it. But that sounds a bit exhausting.
He was quite an exhausting character to be with, yes. But I mean, he was just Jimmy Savile. You know, you can't really. I've never known anybody quite like him. He was just the way you see him. There was no pretense about him. He was a blunt-speaking northerner, but he was at the same time he was always kind and very respectful to you as well.